Good. All right, we're good to go, sir.
Okay,
Okay, go ahead.
we'll call this meeting to order. It's an ad hoc committee meeting on the, what is it, the 12th at 8:30.
Great.
So, Scott, you want to take it?
Thank you, Mr. President. So, thank you. This ad hoc committee was created to discuss and evaluate RBH's services to the district. As just going to give you a bit of a history. As you know, we had an unfortunate incident with our longtime district engineer, Rob Hamers, passing away in early January. And so at the January board meeting, the board of directors wanted to continue having RBH, his firm, providing engineering services to the district, with Michael Benesh as the new president and engineer. And then the board directed staff to report back within 5 to 6 months and discuss the level of service receiving and see if we want to continue with RBH or not. I do want to, so I want to really, it's really not fair. I don't think it's fair to Mike if we try to hold him the same standards like Rob. We know we can't replace or replicate the kind of services we received from Rob, because let's face it, Rob was basically an enigma, right? I mean, he worked 24/7. I mean, he just never stopped. And I don't think we can expect anyone to do that, to replicate that kind of service. However, we do have some challenges with Mike. We want to bring to your attention. He's a good engineer, but there were some issues. Obviously, he does not have all the institutional knowledge like Rob, which again should be expected. He would at least he has all those files available. So if he doesn't know, he can go back and research it and find those files from Rob. I know the board was pleased with Mike yesterday on his master plan, but I have to admit I was a little disappointed in Mike on the master plan, only because when I first asked him to present this to the board in March and to the CAC, he punted it to YAFM, and I was disappointed in that because I knew YAFM cannot really deliver his presentations very articulately, and that was the case. I think he confused a lot of the board members, which is why I asked him to bring it back yesterday, which I'm glad to see that the board was pleased with. A little disappointed in that, and also to let you know that he's still learning on board docs. That staff report for the master's plan was way behind schedule. In fact, we proceeded with posting the agenda without the staff report because it was behind schedule. So a little disappointed in that, but it's again, it's a learning curve. I'm not sure about his experience with SSOs because we haven't had one since he's been, well, we had one, but we didn't need his services. With Rob, he would go out in the field and he would get his hands dirty with the guys. He would find, what caused the SSO, how to repair it. And I don't know what kind of extent that Mike can provide that kind of services with us. Also, no training or mentorship by Mike. Again, I don't think we expected that from him, but that was another services that was greatly appreciated by Rob, where he was mentoring and help training Bao to be an engineer, a PE. So those are some of the issues. Again, it's not life or death type of issues, but I want to bring those to your attention. I do strongly believe that we made a mistake by not transferring Rob's knowledge to someone. We knew this day would come, but it just came sooner than later. We knew one day Rob was going to be our engineer, and hopefully we can transfer that knowledge to someone else. Because we weren't ready, we lost a lot of institutional knowledge, and as I explained, we're challenging a little bit. With that said, I think we could still obtain the type of services that we expected with Rob. What I'm suggesting is kind of like a hybrid approach, similar to what Orange County Sanitation District does. Orange County Sanitation District, I don't know if I did some research. They have 79 engineers on staff. They have 1 director, 7 engineering managers, 10 engineering supervisors, 22 senior engineers, 26 engineers, and 13 associate engineers. And they still contract out engineering services. So they have all those engineering services on staff, but they still contract it out. And that's something I think we can do too. What I'm suggesting is a hybrid approach, is where we hire our own engineer. That engineer oversees our engineering contracts and engineering services, like RBH. We would continue to use RBH on services like they're currently designing our 19th Street pump station force mains, the President force main. He's finishing up on our sewer master plans. But having another engineering on board with all that institutional knowledge, when we're all gone, someone will have that knowledge, and the district can continue doing its business. I think that's very important. We could fund that engineer with our existing budget. Right now, I can have Caitlin share with you what we're spending a month with RBH is about $35,000 a month with RBH. If you recall, back in January, I presented a cost for our in-house engineer. Total cost with salary and benefits was about $215,000, and that totals $18,000 a month. So we can still use our existing budget for that engineer and still use RBH if we need to. So that's my recommendation. I asked staff to be here as well. I don't want you to just hear it from me. I want you to hear from staff as well. That's why I invited Nolani, Caitlin, and Bao to be here to explain to you that we do believe having an engineering on staff will be beneficial to the district and the community. And if you have any questions to staff, please ask them. They're here to answer your questions. So that's my proposal, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, I think your original proposal was to have an engineer that did everything that RBH does, and
right.
I don't think that's even within the realm of possibilities. When you say you hire an engineer for $250,000, then you've still got to pay all of the consultants' costs, that do the actual work. I'm not against having. I think that's an alternative that that has some merit. I suggested that early on. And I think that may be ultimately the best outcome. But I think you need to do some further research on what Orange County Sand District does. Basically, an alternative that they use is they use a guy called Timo Look with project management when they need an engineer, to do a project. I'm not sure that's feasible for us, but they also have a system in place where they go out and do RFPs, and they hire a certain number of engineering firms, qualify a certain number of engineering firms. Then the general manager has $300,000, up to $300,000 authority to assign projects, with very simple RFPs, to keep the consultants from, spending all their time just doing RFPs. So, I think there's a lot of alternatives. My belief is to make this transition, it's going to take a lot of time. You bring a new person in, he has zero institutional knowledge. I do like the concept of, having future institutional knowledge. My suspicion is RBH and Mike Beamish can gain that knowledge significantly faster than, than a new engineer. So this is a huge transition in my. I think you're headed on the right track, but I think it's a huge transition that has to be, thoroughly vetted.
Of course, it takes time, Bob. I mean, I understand that, but why wait? I think we missed the gun with Rob passing. Mike does not have the institutional knowledge. I didn't even know who Mike existed until Rob passed away. And I've been working with Rob for 10 years. I never knew who Mike was, and so to give the keys to someone that we barely knew, I think I don't think it was a good choice, to be honest with you. I think
it was our only choice.
Well,
as you said in the meeting where we made this choice, we have to give them 6 months notice or whatever the notice was. Mm-hmm. I think Mike has worked with Rob in the past, and he has on his right hand the majority of the only institutional knowledge, and that's Effen. Effen may not be able to present himself well, but he's worked with Rob for many years and on all of our projects.
But Rob, it's not true. When we asked Mike and Yaphem information, they said, "Well, I have to get back to you. I have to research that." They don't.
Wait a minute. I'm talking about Effen's working with Mike or working with Rob. He has worked with Rob on a substantial number of projects.
Agreed.
That's what I said.
Agreed. I agree with you that, but I'm not saying that with Yaphem and Mike, with Rob, I mean, the great thing about Rob, I mean, he knew everything in the back of his hands. If I had a question, I mean, his institutional knowledge was phenomenal. I asked him a question like it happened like 15 years ago, and he knew exactly what it was, and that was just phenomenal. I mean, we're not going to have anyone like that. But to Mike and Yaphem, again, one advantage they have over us is they have his files. They have Rob's files, and they can they can go to his computer and look it up and get that information for us, which is good. That is good. But
let me ask you. Did they seem amenable if we just cut them off, or let's say we choose to do with a hybrid approach like you said, are they going to be amenable to give us all those files?
They have to. They belong to us. They have to. They belong to us.
Yeah, they could just disappear. Like
that's true.
You know, the city. When we used the city, they had all kinds of files, and all of a sudden, you know, when we disassociated with the city, those files disappeared.
Yeah, I know. It's something we have to coordinate with Alan. It is possible, and we can't just go in and confiscate their computers. I'd have to talk to Alan and see how we do that. Now, again, I'm not saying we cut off RBH right away. You're right, Bob. It is going to be a transition, but let's start that transition now. Hire an engineer and have that, and we'll still have RBH on our books. We'll still be using RBH because they have that information. They have all those files available. It is a slow process, but let's start it now. We've already missed the boat with Rob passing. Let's don't do it again. Let's learn from that and get someone on board and start passing on that knowledge to someone.
And Vice President Lewin, if I can just make a comment real quick. I think that given the current climate of what's happening also in our economy, we may stand a good chance at being able to recruit a good quality engineer who is looking for some stability and looking to be a part of a special district as opposed to with the city. So we may have somebody who has the experience that they can offer. In terms of the records, I do recall that when I had to acquire all of our plans and contracts and all the other information from Rob's office back in, I think it was 2013, I had physically gone to his office and Rob handed it over without any complaint or any grind against it. So it was easy to do that. The only things that we didn't receive were electronic files. So we really don't know what we don't know. We don't know what exactly he has there, but if we needed to subpoena the records, we could, but I don't foresee that we're gonna have any trouble being able to request and acquire those documents. I would prefer that all of our documentation is centralized here. I think that it's important for us to have a handle on all of our own records and not have it scattered about, between other contractors' offices. So if it's possible for us to do that, I would prefer that. I do see Scott's idea as a viable one, especially when it comes to being able to remain with that continuity of service. Losing Rob back in January was a huge drop off for us, and we weren't prepared for that at all. And I think part of the lessons learned for us is that we really do need to have a better handle in-house of what it is that we do, not just for the individuals that work here, but just for the agency as a whole and for the services that we can provide. So I would support, the board and Scott's recommendation to possibly go hybrid on this.
Well, I think that's probably the leading alternative.
This is Caitlin.
Go ahead.
I just want to say that I agree with Scott and Nolani on that. With finance, we work closely with the engineer during the audit period. And a lot of that, we ask about the financial and the history during, or what's going on during the year. And Rob, he just right away, he provided the best service. And I'm kind of nervous with this coming up audit without Rob. So I think it's very important to bring the knowledge in-house and to retain that in-house and plan for the future. So I support Scott and Nolani's decision on this.
Well, I believe I also do support Scott in this position.
Well, I would say, I'm sorry, Bob, would you say that again, please? What did you say?
You open your ears up. I said, I believe that I do support this position also.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You know, so I'm not sure it's a done deal, but I mean, this is a huge change for us.
It's a huge change.
Losing Rob was a huge change for us.
Yes, and it's a change for the good. It'll help us in the long run, Bob. It really will.
Okay.
And so what will we do? Would we phase out this other company, the current company?
No, it's going to take some while to recruit, you know, and bring some on board. Ideally, maybe at the end of the year. So we'll still have RBH on maybe we extend his contract for another 3 to 6 months, and then we would slowly transition that out. With that said, though, we would still use them when we, you know, if we need to go out to bid, we would contact RBH to submit us proposals. You know, we would still use them as a resource. So they, you know, we'll still be paying into RBH, but it won't be, you know, $35,000 a month like we're always doing.
I think it's mandatory that we get control of all those files that he has in his possession.
Yes.
And I mean, that should be done immediately.
Okay.
And, you know, we can't allow that to, you know, we don't know how they'll react to us making it clear that we're not going to be using them long term. And, you know, I'm sure, you know, they're professionals, but, you know, they're people too. And you don't know how they're going to react. And we want to protect our position.
Yes, absolutely.
Do we have room in-house for RPH?
Yes, I will terminate our lease with OC Second Chance.
No, well, Scott, I'm not talking about the engineer. I'm talking about RBH as a firm. We once talked about bringing them in. We once talked about bringing them into the district. You know, housing them in the district.
Oh, we can't do that because then they'd be treated like an employee. We can't bring them in the district.
We could charge them rent just like we do those other people.
No, we can't because they'd be like an employee. It's like we don't charge Alan an office because they'd be charged like an employee, and then they could be eligible for PERS.
I'm just saying that might be a way to, you know, smooth over this transition.
You know, I don't, if I may recall, there was something that discussed about that right when we moved to this building.
Yeah.
And there was some reason that we said, no, we can't do that. Some conflict or something like that.
Yeah, I think Alan wrote a memo on this. I can get that. It's because they're strict. If you treat your contractors like an employees, i.e. they have an office, then PERS is going to think, well, that's an employee, therefore you need to be charged per cost, and then they'll be eligible for PERS.
Okay, let's not follow that track.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
You know, I think that probably the hybrid approach is the best approach. The devil's in the details.
Okay.
And so your vision is the engineer would be like a project manager. He wouldn't necessarily do any engineering.
He wouldn't
I
do
don't
any-
think he'd have time to do engineering.
Yeah, he wouldn't do any design work, let's put it that way. But he wouldn't be design work, but he would be a licensed engineer, so he can review plans. He will review plans when they come in, so we'll need him, review plans, sign off on plans. He will administer CIP projects, administer the inspections, supervise BOW.
Yeah, signing off on plans is a professional engineering obligation of the people who designed it. But I think there's a place on there to sign off on plans.
Yeah, he's got to put a stamp on there, right? So you got to put a PE stamp on there. So that's where the district engineer would come in. He would stamp it and approve it.
I don't think, okay, that's a detail.
Right. He would also supervise, he or she would supervise BOW, also our inspections program. So, and that person can mentor BOW and train BOW. BOW wants to be a PE. So that's also an opportunity.
Might I also jump in regards to the plan check?
Sure.
So basically having it, I mean, one of the benefits I would see, it would definitely improve the way we permit projects, basically reviewing plans. I mean, currently right now, it takes about 1 to 2 weeks to have RBH to review plans on, in regards to sewer plans. And also, I mean, sometimes it might even take longer if we have our alternate engineer. And, because if it's a conflict of interest of RBH having a project, we would need an alternate engineer from OCSD to review the plans. And those may take even longer. But definitely, I think with having a engineer in-house, the timeliness of the engineer to review the plans, it could potentially be done over the counter for smaller projects. And I mean, this also applies to the engineer to review, CCTVs for commercial projects. So that's what I got to say.
Thank you, BOW.
Well, do we need to discuss this any further then?
Well, that's up to you. I mean, I think if the committee supports the hybrid approach, we can bring this back to the board in January, or I'm sorry, in June.
Well, I think everyone supports the hybrid approach, but like I said, the devil's in the details. We've only touched the surface on, this whole process. I would say, you said we might have RBH around for 3 to 6 months. I would expect them to be around for, 1 to 2 years. They're involved in projects now that haven't even gotten off the drawing boards. So once they get off the drawing boards, then there's construction of those projects.
Sure.
We have to decide how we're going to use them in the future, or use other small engineering firms. I mean, there's a lot of details and work before the engineer can be effective. I mean, you get him on board, he's not going to be very effective for a long period of time.
Well, with any new employees, there's always that transition period. They have to learn about our culture and our values and our procedures. And yeah, of course, I agree that takes time. But I'm confident with the staffing that we have, that we get, like Nalani says, that the timing is good right now to find a very solid engineer that's looking for stability. I think we can get things rolling quite quickly.
So the institutional knowledge will be in one engineer. So he decides he gets a better job, 2 years down the road.
No, that institutional knowledge can be in 1 year because again, that person will be with us on a day-to-day basis. So their institutional knowledge will be passed on by all the staff. So BOW will have that information. I'll have that information.
Okay, you're right.
So is it the committee's recommendation? Okay, we can proceed to the board with this recommendation of a hybrid approach, and we'll come back with the details as Vice President Uten mentioned.
The only question I have is, and you mentioned it, but financially, how's that going to impact us? It was $250,000 a year, and where's that money coming from?
Well, I'll start, and Caitlin, maybe you can finish. As I mentioned, right now we're paying around $30,000 a month, I believe, with RBH. As I said, a fully burdened rate, and I think that was on the high end. That was the high end for an engineer was $215,000. That's about $18,000 a month. So if we're gonna scale back some of the services from RBH and transfer that over to the engineer, that's where the makeup can come from, is in our existing engineering budget. Is that right, Caitlin?
Yes.
So
Well,
we-
let me make a correction there. Right now, $30,000 a month is going to a firm that does planning and design, construction inspection, major construction inspection. All those activities are going to continue. And it's not $30,000 a month now. That was what Rob averaged over the years. It's
No.
right now it's $10,000 or $11,000 a month. So we're going to bring an $18,000 a month product in, and he's going to farm out the $30,000 a month that he has to hire the engineers to do. It's not going to drop off. It's not going to just be $12,000 a month for these engineers to do what RBH and or other engineering firms need to do to finish projects. So I think you need to be a little more realistic there.
Yes, thank you, Bob. The $10,000 a month that RBH, that was only for 1 month. We did an analysis.
Can I say something?
I look at those numbers every month.
Go ahead, Caitlin, say something.
So in January, it was 9,400, and in February, it went up to 20,900. And for March, we paid RBH 36,300. So it seems like it's gonna increase.
So those numbers, so that's the cost of doing engineering. So we bring in an $18,000 a year product. I don't think it's realistic to think that $30,000 a month is going to go away.
Again, like you said, Bob, you got to look into details. If you break down his costs, that $30,000, correct me if I'm wrong, Caitlin, that includes inspections, correct?
Yes.
So inspections, Mayor Bao is going to start doing inspections in July, and a large part of his expenses are from inspections. He has general engineering, which is a standard retainer that we pay him. He has engineering. I think he's required. He can bill us up to 60 hours a month on engineering services. And then he has some capital improvement projects. Now he's not working on a lot of capital improvement projects right now. The only ones I can think of he's doing right now is 19th Street, President, which are still in design, and then he has the manhole rehab project. That's it, I think, right now.
Okay, well, I'd like to see those details, but in truth, Scott, all those costs are not going to go away.
Right, and it's going to be transferred over. I think. Well, RBH is not. If we have an engineer, RBH is not going to be charging us $20,000-$30,000 a month. That cost is going to be transferred over to the engineer. So you're right. The engineering budget is going to still be the same. Correct.
It'll be less, but it's not going to be $30,000 a month goes away.
Right. Well, $30,000 a month. I don't think. No, I don't. You're still saying you still think it's going to be $30,000 a month for RBH?
I'd say it's going to be that. It's going to be something pretty substantial for our new engineer to hire an engineering firm to do something like President Pump Station or whatever the next big project is. I mean, those costs are sunk costs. There are some costs, like you said, that are going to go away, but it's not going to go to zero.
No, I agree. I agree. It will not go to zero. I agree.
So it's not like we're going to spend $18,000 a month and we have 12 to spend. It's probably going to be 24 or some amount more.
Right. No, but what I'm saying though, Bob, is that we can fund the engineer with our existing budget.
Okay.
How are we going to approach the firm about obtaining the records? I mean,
I'll have to talk to Alan about that. I'm going to need to talk to Alan. What's the best course to do that?
yeah, because we want to make sure that's not disturbed, and you know, it's a easy transition.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Well, I'll have to talk to Alan about that because we have to tread lightly on this one because, you know, we don't want to have access to private files, right? I mean, that's what we have to be careful of.
Yeah, yeah. So, anybody else have anything, or
And can I just add something that, remember that Rob's rate is a very low rate. And I believe that if we're gonna, let's say if we're gonna stick with RBH starting July with a new contract, I am pretty sure he's gonna propose a way higher rate.
Yeah.
And so it's gonna increase the expense for engineering if we continue with RBH.
Yeah, the horrible part is, you know, we don't know yet what our future engineering processes are going to be. The master plan, I was pretty impressed with, you know, the approach they're taking to the master plan. We haven't had a master plan since 2006, which is atrocious. So they're going to come up and they're hopefully going to list a number of projects, and they're also going to hopefully have a timeline and costs associated with those projects. We do have substantial money. Half of our sewer budget is allocated to doing CIP projects, more or less. I mean, we've got a huge reservoir of needs, you know, what happened. I'll let me talk a little bit. What happened when I came on the board? We didn't have enough money to do projects, so we, you know, Rob made an estimate of what we needed, and it was, you know, we had $300 million in assets, and he just divided by what, you know, got this huge number. So we did the asset management. We did an asset management program, and that's how we established the 1.75 million a year that we go to fund capital projects. But it took us 2 years to catch up. You know, to even start to catch up on projects. This transition is probably going to set us back another couple years to catch up on projects. You know, we've got this large reservoir of money, but we need to begin to spend it on projects. I don't see any way around, you know, having this enormous lag time in doing projects. I don't know quite where I'm going with all that. I think the hybrid approach is the right approach. There's a huge amount of thinking has to go through it. You know, I'm as optimistic as everybody, but I would caution that, you know, this is going to set us back. Rob passing is going to set us back a couple of years in getting these projects done, and we don't even know what projects we need to do because we don't have a master plan.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I get so excited about this.
I think either decision we're gonna go forward here. I think it's gonna be difficult. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, I agree with you, Caitlin.
But I think we also need to employ an approach of scheduling and you know, prioritizing things that need to be on the list.
Yeah.
And you know, we can't just think about it every year, and you know, it's got to be a consistent approach, and we've got to have goals, and you know, how far are we going to go this year?
Sure.
So, I mean, we got to consciously address it.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. So if I'm hearing this committee correct, then you're giving direction to staff to come back to the full board with the hybrid approach?
Well, yes, and I'd like to see it as it develops. I think Jim and I should be, I'd like to see the agenda report and I think as much as I think this is the right approach. I just wouldn't be too optimistic about it until we, have a couple years under our belt.
Okay, I read you.
And there's no way to get 2 years under our belt without starting it.
That's right.
Agreed. Thank you.
And,
We'll do that.
and I would be very sensitive to, I had even thought as an alternative that RBH could be the engineer that manages these things for us or helps us manage it in the transition. We just, it's too risky to lose their knowledge.
Yeah, no, agreed. We're not going to just cut them off the legs right when the engineer is hired. No, we're not going to do that. It's going to take, like I said, take some time. So they will still be involved with the district for a while.
And if they're the cheapest product, forever.
Yep. Okay, I think we've got our direction. So is there anything else you want to talk about?
Anybody have anything?
No, sir. Thank you.
So your intent is to bring this to the June board?
Yes, the June board.
When are we obligated to let RBH know? You said 5 or 6 months?
July?
To give them to notice for, and then we said we'd give them 6 months. So they'll get their notice basically when the board makes their decision on June. And then we'll have to amend their contract.
I would set them down. I'd set them down right away and, tell them where we're headed.
Okay, we'll do. We will do that.
I agree with you, Bob.
Thank you for your thoughtful approach.
Well, thank you for your support. Greatly appreciate it.
Okay,
All right.
Thank you.
this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.